Promises made, promises kept. For the first time in history, the New York City Rent Guidelines Board voted to freeze rents on 1- and 2-year leases, fulfilling another campaign promise of Mayor Mamdani. Couple that with universal childcare in the works. We have rent freezes. The only really major thing left on the agenda is free buses. And again, I would like to remind the folks that this is month 6 of his 4-year term. But let's take a closer look at what is going on with the rent freezes.
A huge relief for millions of New York City residents living in rent-regulated apartments. No rent hike for the next year, or possibly 2, depending on your lease. It is also another big win this week for Mayor Mamdani, who followed through on a major campaign promise. Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim was there for tonight's big vote.
The motion passes.
For the first time in its history, New York's Rent Guidelines Board is freezing rents for 2-year leases for the city's 1 million rent-regulated apartments. The board also freezing 1-year leases, something it has done only 3 times before.
0%.
So again, if you missed that, the Rent Guidelines Board has only frozen the rent hikes on 1-year leases 3 times in its history, and it has never frozen the rent hikes on 2-year leases in its history. And it's been around for decades. This is why, and again, it highlights the importance of having a mayor who has a vision to actually help working New Yorkers. The Rent Guidelines Board is appointed by the mayor, and Zohran Mamdani, I don't know if it was strategically or just by luck or maybe a combination of both, he was able to appoint like 6 or 7 members to the board who align with the vision of, maintaining costs that are affordable for New Yorkers. And the whole point of having a rent stabilized apartment is so that you're not paying these exorbitant rent costs to live in rundown neighborhoods for the most part. The whole point of the Rent Guidelines Board is to make sure that rent is affordable for New Yorkers.
The unprecedented 7-1 vote unleashing unbridled joy and relief from the tenants who packed the board vote tonight.
This is no longer just a city that is a playground for the rich. This is a city for the working people who make it run, and we are making it run for us. And I am so overjoyed that we're finally here after so much fighting, after years of struggling to figure out how we're going to make ends meet.
For years, landlords have run this city, and this is like a new era of tenant power. We have a rent-freeze mayor. Hundreds of people came out and testified, thousands online. Like, landlords' days are over. Tenants are in power now, and it feels amazing.
Landlords who say they are struggling with rising costs like fuel and insurance, though, lambasting the decision.
The whole process is such a farce. We're going to have to cut back. We'll have to lay off people. We'll have to lay off some of the supers. Only choice. It's a business. People don't get it. This is a business. It's not a choice that you think this is for free.
I'm freezing. Your rent.
And again, that is you got to pay attention as to who was happy for this and who was upset for this. Obviously, landlords are mad because this is going to affect their bottom line. But as you're going to see in this ABC7 article, the Rent Guidelines Board under the previous mayor voted to increase rent several times, which led to landlords pulling in record numbers of profit, not just revenue, but profit after deduction of costs and all this other shit. They raked in the most money that they did under Mayor Adams. And then you take a look at also the conditions that a lot of these apartments are left in, that these landlords, let sit because they don't want to invest in getting it renovated, because again, it would affect their bottom line. They're not going homeless. They actually own multiple units and multiple homes. Like, this is the comparison of this argument. Landlords are trying to sell you or trying to convince people that this is, people just want free rent. No, people want their rent to stop skyrocketing for shitty apartments. That's basically the bottom line.
Mayor Mamdani made it a signature issue in his campaign, then followed through on his pledge to appoint half a dozen members of the 9-member board.
Buildings with rent-stabilized apartments saw their revenue increase by more than 6% last year.
But while the outcome seemed like a foregone conclusion, it did not come without drama. This morning, Christina Smith, a board member appointed to represent landlords, abruptly resigned, claiming the mayor stacked the deck. The mayor, for his part, in a statement tonight, calling it a historic victory for tenants, adding, "This is the relief that working people across our city deserve." The mayor insists the board is independent and that members made up their own minds. Under the Adams administration, landlords received a 12% increase, while their net
there you go.
operating incomes rose by 30%. In East Harlem, Stefan Kim, Channel 7.
I'm going to repeat that. I paused it by accident, but it was at the bottom of this article. Under the Adams administration, landlords received 12% rent increases while their net operating incomes rose by 30%. Okay? So landlords shed their tears, fill my cup, fill my water bottle. I will keep sipping it because, god damn it, the city needs to be more affordable for working class New Yorkers. And I just find it funny as well. I don't know if Zoran if the timing of this is coincidental or anything, but this comes just not too much longer after Trump, our genius Cheeto in chief, decided to, I guess, he's holding this housing bill, this bipartisan housing bill that was passed by both parties, hostage in order to get the Vote Save America Act passed. So here in the article by CNN, President Trump is a familiar legislative arsonist. He'll often throw curveballs at the last minute that give congressional leaders fits, especially in his own party, but rarely has one of Trump's late curveballs seemed as ill-advised as the one he threw Wednesday morning. He suddenly canceled his planned signing of a housing affordability bill that had passed in both chambers with overwhelming bipartisan majorities. Again, a very hard fucking thing to do in Congress is to get overwhelming bipartisan support. Usually that's reserved for like declaring war on a brown country. And he added a new twist saying he wouldn't sign it until Congress passed the Save America Act. Some Republicans have cast that election-related legislation as existential, but it doesn't appear to have any viable path forward. And Trump didn't just change his mind. He did so even as the festivities celebrating the housing bill signing had begun. Prominent Republicans were at a press conference espousing the virtues of the bill, touting Trump's support for it just as he pulled back. While Republicans were giving press conferences and trying to tell reporters, oh yeah, President Trump, he's backing this housing bill. It has bipartisan support. All we need for him is to sign it. This motherfucker's like, not too fast. You better get this goddamn Vote Save America Act because I need another rigged election. No housing for you unless I get a rigged election. A day earlier, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, back from the IR, called the bill, quote, one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation in American history. So Caroline Leavitt, why didn't the president sign it? Anybody ask that follow-up question? Hours earlier, Trump's political advisor for the midterms called it a signature commitment. So just to recap, as of Wednesday, Trump was holding hostage, quote, one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation ever, using it as leverage for a bill he really wants. That seems like a very bad idea less than 5 months before November's elections. Hopefully, the 30% of Americans that still support Donald Trump have some sort of political awakening or open a book within the next 5 months, and they realize, again, Trump will hold your housing hostage so that way he can rig the election. That is simple, the simple fact of the matter. The Save America Act doesn't do anything but disenfranchise people trying to vote. Does not make elections more secure. It does not make voting easier for people. In fact, it does the exact opposite thing. And he's willing to hedge that in order to keep Americans homeless. Juxtapose that with the communist Muslim terror that is Zoran Mamdani and all the things that he has accomplished in, again, 6 months of being mayor. All I know is that a lot of people are saying that they'd rather live in New York, and they wasn't saying that 6 months ago. So with that, I'll see y'all in the next video, and y'all have a good one.